All right, I think we'll go get rolling here with who we got. If we got any late arrivers, we'll get them caught up. But appreciate everybody joining here, taking your time out for a Sunday to join us here for today's special presentation. Here we've got Coach Tyler Willis here from Wartburg College in for an interview, and appreciate him making some time here to provide some insight into the recruiting process, talk a little about his program, and just be an opportunity for you guys to fire away with some questions and find out a little bit more about them. So, Coach Tyler, how you doing today? Thanks for joining.
Doing well, Andy. Thanks again for the opportunity. Really looking forward to talking with you here.
Yeah, this is awesome stuff. So this is always great opportunities for you guys to get in and hear from some of the coaches when we have chances to talk with them. So again, appreciate you all joining live here, and we'll definitely send out some recordings here as well when we get wrapped up. But let's go and dive into some things here. Obviously we're on social media, guys. Hit us up on Twitter, Instagram, NCSA Baseball. Follow us there as well. Real quick, just before we dive into things, guys, we've got a few workshops coming up here the rest of the month, getting into July. I'm actually going to get the rest of my curriculum posted tomorrow, so I don't have all my July stuff up yet, but we've got a few coming up here end of June. How to email coaches, shooting your video, some of our basics, right? So if you guys need to get some of that info, check those out. And I'll have a lot more of our July curriculum posted tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that for sure, okay? Just real quick, too, guys, if you haven't been in any of my workshops, I'm going to take 30 seconds, and then it's over for me. But tell you a little bit about my background real quick. Again, I'm Andy Drake. I'm the senior group recruiting coach, oversee our elite members, create a lot of the content, create a lot of the workshops here, but former head coach at the college level, Cairn University out in Philadelphia, Division III program, recruiting coordinator at Kalamazoo College back in Kalamazoo, Michigan, played at Calvin University, Division III as well. So Division III background a lot for me. High school coach for about a decade, been here for over 10 years. So hopefully be a good host here for you guys today. And be sure to reach out if you have any questions. But our guest of honor here, Coach Tyler Willis. Coach, thanks for joining. So Coach Willis is from Wartburg College. That's a D3 in Iowa. All right. So he's got a little bit of a different schedule. I'm going to let him talk a little bit about that here from a lot of the people in the country too, as far as what's going on in their background. But Coach Tyler, would love for you to just kind of fill the guys in a little bit on just some of your background. Like, how did you get to where you are? What are some of the experiences that got you to coaching there at Wartburg?
Yeah, for sure. First and foremost, I've kind of grown up around Wartburg as a young one. My dad, longtime football coach, actually here at the college and AD for over 20 years. And so I grew up in Waverly here, grew up going to Wartburg events as a young one. And so I kind of always knew, as I got older, that coaching was kind of in my blood, so I've had a few other stops, at schools in the conference here, but ultimately really glad that my path has led me back to Wartburg. I played at Wartburg as well here too. 2-year starter, went to multiple regional, tournaments, won conference 3 times. And so have a lot of passion for this college and this place. And just really excited to be back home here.
Well, it's pretty cool to be back at your alma mater. And I did see that you're playing days. You guys did have a lot of great success there, hoping to bring some of those days back, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Working hard at it, man. So what about, some of your playing experience, kind of as well, some specifics on did you do any kind of summer collegiate ball? Talk about some of the experience you had back in the day as far as during your years in college, playing on the field.
Yeah, for sure. Have a lot of fond memories just with, guys I still stay in touch with to this day. Most of my summer experiences was just a town ball league that we had about 10, 15 minutes away, but very appreciative of just the structure and attention to detail that kind of taught me what is required to be a part of a successful program. And so I learned a lot of life lessons, learned a lot of things for, my coaching future too, which I didn't know at the time exactly where I'd be, but a lot of what I experienced at Wartburg has helped me today.
Great stuff. So talk to the guys a little bit about Wartburg College. Obviously, we know where it's at, but give the guys some details, some things to know about Wartburg. What kind of stands out? What are some things that, guys are, kind of drawn to about the school that you can kind of talk to the guys a little bit about today?
Absolutely. The biggest thing that I see a lot when I, and hear a lot when I talk to recruits is they want to be a part of a winning culture, right? A lot of these guys that we're talking to win a lot right now as high school players. For 20 years in a row, Wartburg has won the conference all sports trophy. So if you walk around our campus, you walk around our Hall of Champions that we call, you'll see trophies everywhere. Football was in the Final Four last year. Women's basketball was in the Final Four last year. Obviously, wrestling, they have a lot of success. So pretty much we always say that if you're not winning here, you're kind of the outlier. I think that's what draws people to Wartburg to start with. When you see our facilities are top notch. They kind of remind you of a small D1 school, to be honest. And I think that shows it's all about the student athlete experience, right? So when families walk on campus and they see the facilities, they see the sustained success for a long period of time, that lends them to believe that this could be a good fit for their son. And I think that's what we found here. And that's what we sell in the recruiting process a lot.
As a former D3 coach myself, I know that we always try to tell our guys a lot, like, hey, be open, of course, in the recruiting process. But, our facilities were great. We had brand new ones at our place. And you mentioned facilities. There's a lot of things that, you guys can bring to the table that, other places can bring too, that people might not think about, as they're comparing schools. So I think that's awesome. Now, as far as like the conference goes, talk to the guys a little bit about sort of the competitiveness of your conference, of your area. You guys are in a very competitive Division III area. Talk about like who are some of the other programs that you guys are up against? Like what's the competition like there around you guys?
Yeah, it's glad you brought that up because it's now more than ever, top to bottom. It's as competitive as ever, as I'm sure you followed. But for the listeners out there, this past year we finished 6th place in the league, and we won 9 more games than last year. With this year being our first year as a staff at Wartburg, and we felt like it was a really nice step, a much needed step. But by no means are we to our end goal. I think if you look at other teams in our conference, we're having teams every year make a regional, in some manner, and to be honest, doing pretty well in a regional. So it kind of, year to year, I mean, it's the same teams at the top, and it, continues to be a dogfight every single year. And so I think what I'm passionate about and a big reason for me being back is getting it back to where we were when I was a player here, right? You see alumni, I joke that when I go out on the road almost every night during the summer that you run into somebody with that has Wartburg ties, that has had great experience, that won a lot. And it's been really cool to meet those people and connect with those people. And I think we have what it takes to be successful here. And that's what we're working toward, to getting back to.
Yeah, great stuff. Now, as far as like recruiting, talk a little bit about to the guys here tonight about like what do you guys look for? Like when you're out on the road, when you're evaluating recruits, when you're putting together your list and kind of, putting together like an idea of like what a Wartburg baseball player looks like. What are some of the things you check off? What are some of the things that you're kind of looking for, whether you're watching them in games or at the different events that you're going to?
Yeah, no, that's great. And there's multiple layers to that question, as I'm sure you can refer back to your experiences as well too. But I think for us, really trying to, it's too easy nowadays to click on Twitter and find a guy that throws 85 or find a guy that has an exit velo with this, right? We want to be as thorough as we can with the process of identifying team guys that embody the team aspect of everything. So we're very thorough with going out and seeing kids play, asking coaches, their high school coach, hey, what can you tell me about this guy? What can you tell me about the way he goes about his business? And, I think we talk a lot about to our current guys about being problem solvers, right? Like not playing the victim with things, right? So a lot of times, when I go out to watch a kid, I already know he's talented, right? I've already evaluated him to be a guy that we like. How does he handle striking out 3 times? How does he handle walking 2 guys in a row? How does he handle an umpire not giving him the corners when he should be, right? Sounds kind of obvious, but you'll be surprised. I mean, there's guys that will unfortunately have to cross off based on their body language and based on things that they can't control, right? We always talk about you like as a coach or player, you only have so much energy that you can give forward in a day, right? How are you focusing on giving everything you have to your team and being the best teammate you can be? So that's a lot of times what we're looking for. Guys that are problem solvers, guys that don't play the victim. And when we go out, a lot of times we have an idea of kind of what we're looking for. We have specific metrics of kids, like of where we want pitchers to be, where we want hitters to be, like all that stuff, as I'm sure every program does. But fit is so important these days. You always hear the word fit being thrown out there. And a lot of fit to me is the players' values aligning with our values as a staff, right? If those values align with us and the coach can confirm that and their travel ball coach can confirm that and their football coach can check the boxes, whoever you want to talk to, right? If they can all confirm that stuff and we get to know the kid more and more, that's how we can make it a fit. And so those are some things that we kind of look for. Yep.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, transferring is there's a lot of that happening within college sports these days. Now I don't know if it's quite touched D3 maybe as much as some other levels, but how have you guys sort of approached sort of the handling guys that maybe come to you as a potential recruit and say, hey, can I use you as a stepping stone to get somewhere else? Or, maybe guys leaving your program, or do you guys go out and kind of, pursue, some of the transfer portal stuff? Like, how have you guys sort of started to dip into that a little bit? Are you mainly looking for the 4-year guys? I know that's a big question for a lot of families nowadays, is how is this like transfer sort of culture affecting, a lot of different programs?
Yeah, no, it's great. And I would say, to your point, it's definitely, it may not be on as big of a scale it is for the for the other levels, but it still affects us at the Division III level, and specifically Wartburg. The guys that we recruit, if you specifically look at our 2024 class, I mean, they've had options at other levels as well too. They found that fit to be us. So we recruit against all levels, and I think now more than ever, I talked about fit earlier. Like when we talk to parents, you hear a lot of kids say that they don't want to be one of 4,000 in the transfer portal like there is today. They don't want to do that. So even more of a reason to be thorough with the process, choose a place that's a great fit for you, choose a place that wants you. So we still value the 4-year experience. Obviously, we're not going to, be short and undersell what, the product that we have to offer here. But, we'll also get kids that reach out that, maybe didn't work out at a junior college, or, we have a guy joining us next year who is on a Power 5 team, and he's coming to join us. And so we'll get those opportunities, just with the place that we have and the product that we sell and the tradition we have. But we're really selling the 4-year experience. And that's, again, where, like, when I talk to a kid, I can kind of learn right away kind of what they're valuing based on their answers right away. And so that's how we kind of go about that.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, as far as as you guys as a staff are putting together your recruit list, tell the guys a little bit here about how you guys operate as far as how do you put together your list? How do you guys sort of figure out who's going to go see who? How do you communicate that way? Just in general, how are you guys sort of beginning the process with guys and then moving them through that process with you from interest or conversation to commitment to you?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed here in my obviously just completed year 1 is the true system that we have from a recruiting standpoint. We have other coaches, several other coaches on our staff who help recruit as well. So being the recruiting coordinator, obviously all of that kind of falls under my umbrella, if you will. But, we have a catching coach. We have 2 pitching coaches. We have an outfield coach. Myself as a hitting and infield coach. Coach Klunder, our head coach, obviously oversees it all, but is mainly a hitting and infield guy as well too. So I would say in the summer, we meet bi-weekly, as a staff and kind of divvy up, okay, obviously the state of Iowa kids, who's going to see who this week. But then we also, there's tournaments out of state, and there's also out of state teams coming to play, in Iowa for tournaments as well too. So, dividing up territories for that, who wants to take who wants to take that, and then basically just staying in touch about these kids. So we have a system, that we keep track of conversations, any type of correspondence that we have with them, whether that's going to see them playing a game, writing them a postcard, right? Talking to their parents, whatever it is, talking to their high school coach, right? So it's a very structured system that we have that I, only hope to expand here, as we get going with this more.
And guys are going to know, you guys are probably very clear, right, about where they're at or where you're at with them. Usually there's not a lot of gray area as far as what next steps are and things like that. So how important is it for these guys to make sure that they're communicating with you and keeping you updated and letting you know where things are at? And if they aren't sure, asking questions. I think a lot of coaches get a little concerned sometimes about kids not following up as much as maybe they need to, right? In a lot of cases. So how does that play into what you guys are up against as far as making sure where these guys are at and they know where you're at with them?
100%. Great point. I would say it's a little, doing this as, this will be, I think I just finished year 6, as an assistant coach and a recruiting coordinator, assistant, whatever you want to say. I think it's becoming more and more of a red flag when you ask kids to follow up and they don't. And so I love it when kids take the initiative and send me a video of, them hitting a double or, them on the mound striking out 2 or 3 guys, whatever it is, right? That's important because I think big picture wise, that's going to be how they communicate to you when they're here, right? So if they can't follow up with you in those simple, requests to, hey, let me know how this goes, that could be a red flag for me, when they get here. How are they going to be? Am I going to have to be constantly hounding them and asking them what it's like? So to your point, yes, I love recruits that come to campus prepared with questions, and then, when they ask about next steps. I feel like as a staff, we do a good job of outlining that, telling them what the next steps are, being as transparent as possible. If we want them to come to campus, giving them some dates. But when they do that as well, that makes it even better.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you guys are in a little bit of a unique situation. We were kind of talking about it before the guys came in, but in Iowa, right, the summer baseball is really the high school baseball in Iowa, unlike most other parts of the country. So you guys maybe have a little bit of a different focus, perhaps, in kind of how you schedule seeing guys. You're going to see out of state guys and be communicating with them as well. But how does your guys' schedule look when it comes to getting out and seeing guys, evaluating players, as far as the summertime goes?
Yeah, for sure. We are, the high school season goes on during the week, so we want to be as visible as we can throughout the state. As I said, we have other guys on our staff besides myself and our head coach, Casey Klunder, who recruit. Coach Destival, our catching coach, Coach Gatto, one of our pitching coaches, and Coach Matt Maluski, one of our other pitching coaches. They get out on the road as well, too. So I would say for myself as the recruiting coordinator, I'm on the road at least 4 to 5 times a week, going, whether that's in the Des Moines area, Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Dubuque area, Cedar Valley area, right? Like, I just want to be, Wartburg has to be visible, and we are being visible. We're doing a good job of that. So on the weekends is kind of where those out-of-state tournaments come into play. Marion, Prospect Meadows, the perfect game tournaments oftentimes take place on weekends. Actually, there's one next weekend as well with a bunch of out-of-state teams coming in. So I think it's a good balance, that we have our schedule. We just have a master schedule, and we keep track of what games everyone's going to, who they're going to watch. And it really allows us to prioritize the Iowa guys during the week and the out-of-state guys on the weekends, because obviously the out-of-state guys played their high school season during the spring. So I think it works out well.
So for you guys, what's kind of the roster makeup? Do you guys have a lot of in-state guys? Is it mostly that? Or do you have a good mix of some in-state, out-of-state? Like, what's kind of the ratio look like right now? And what do you guys kind of envision is sort of like the ideal sort of ratio with that?
For sure. We want 70 to 75%, maybe even 80% to be Iowa, and it has been. My big thing as a recruiting coordinator, obviously, is overseeing everything, out-of-state, in-state, everything, but especially hammering Iowa, all positions, pitchers, position players. And that's kind of my focus. And I think we do a great job of supplementing out-of-state kids as well. So, we have 3 to 4 Illinois kids this year coming in our 2024 class. Obviously, we're going to recruit Minnesota and Wisconsin hard, Nebraska, and then, some of the Western states, Arizona, California, Nevada, all those places too. So it's always going to be Iowa. That's going to be our bread and butter. But to your point, you're going to have to supplement with some guys. And I feel like we've done that so far.
So identifying those, so for any out-of-state kids that might be listening in, like how does that happen for you guys? Is that usually more a recruit contacts you guys first? Are you getting some recommendations from some pipelines that you have? Like, how does sort of the out-of-state communication begin? The in-state stuff, you guys probably a lot of times maybe identify some guys potentially, but how does the out-of-state conversation happen?
Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. You mentioned the pipeline. Obviously the guys that we got from Illinois coming in, for example, we know that contact very well. So when you get to know guys, obviously they send you next year's guys too. A lot of times it's emails, recruiting website service stuff. And, with a chance of potentially seeing them at a later date. So, we get emails all the time, like I'm sure every college coach does. So filtering through guys that we like, guys that we can see being a good fit. But it happens in every way you can think of, coaches calling us, everything. Yep.
Do you guys run any camps? Do you do showcase stuff? Like, talk to the guys about some of like the third party stuff that maybe you go to, or some of the camps that you guys run. How important are those as far as like being able to evaluate guys or for them to get in front of you?
Yeah, the camp scene for us, probably similar to almost every Iowa college, right? It's just a little bit different because in a perfect world, right, the summertime would be an ideal time to run a lot of camps, like other states do. With the high school season being season for those high school teams. That makes it tough. So a lot of our camps honestly are in the fall winter time. And we will do like baseball schools or, like where it's a day full of, instruction, whether that's pitching, catching, hitting, fielding, throwing. We'll also do some like local camps and leagues too. So like on Sunday nights and stuff. So we're always trying to expand that. We do have some outdoor teams and programs, come use our field from time to time in the summer, which is obviously good from a visibility standpoint for them to see what we have to offer. But that's kind of what the camp scene looks like for us.
Yeah, good stuff. Now, if the guys are interested in attending things like that, just check the website, reach out to you guys. How visible is that? You guys got it pretty
100%. Yep. My email is on our website. And usually around the first couple months in the fall, we start getting that stuff out, and we tweet that stuff out on our baseball account, and we make that stuff visible.
Awesome. Good stuff. Now, looking ahead as far as like just sort of more bigger picture wise, about kind of the Wartburg program and like, what are some of the challenges that you guys come up against in recruiting? Like, what are some of the things that when it comes to either like putting your list together or evaluating guys or ultimately like sealing the deal with recruits or whatever it may be, what are some of the challenges that you guys come up against as a staff, when it comes to recruiting?
Yeah, great question. Obviously just the D3 label in general, I think, everyone kind of fights in a sense. I'll be straightforward and honest that we compete a lot against, as I said earlier, we go up against some of the JUCOs, the small D1s, D2s. Obviously, sometimes, a lot of times schools in our league too. But I think you talk about battles they have to fight. It's the, still the level thing. And I think, again, with the transfer portal and things, guys going in there like crazy now, just emphasizing fit and, relationships and being as genuine as you can. And I think the kids that we have coming in our first, and this is obviously our first class as a staff, we feel really good about, but those are conversations we had to have, with them when they had other D2s and, places reaching out to them and trying to decide, hey, do I want to go do that? Do I want to not? And so, the cost thing as well, that's kind of the elephant in the room, I think, with Division III schools is, when they, a kid or a family who maybe doesn't know a ton about Wartburg to start, right? They look us up and they see the sticker price and they automatically just say, oh, nope, can't. But more and more, educating families, our admission staff does a great job, meeting with families and getting to make sure that they're on the same page and just kind of, as I said, educating them on the process. I think that's the biggest disclaimer that I could probably say is that, very rarely does anyone pay even close to what the sticker price says. And so obviously it can be alarming when you look at it and families read the number, but when it really gets down to it with financial aid and all that stuff, we obviously get really good students here. We had the most all academic guys in the conference this past year as a baseball team. And so people value the academics here as well too. It's a very strong academic institution. So when they get down to guys that have high GPAs and guys that, get financial aid, it can be very manageable. So I would say those are the most hurdles that we go through at Wartburg.
Yeah. I remember being a coach as well, like dealing with the sticker price, like you said, and all that. It can be challenging, for a lot of the D3 coaches just to sort of overcome that. But I remember, and you guys probably have examples too, we had guys that the financial aid package ended up being just as strong as with baseball offers at NAIAs or D2s or whatever, and it was still just as strong because they were rewarded pretty well, from the school. So go through the process, right? Like I would always tell them, go through the process and see how it goes. Sure. Let's talk more about the admission side of things for Wartburg. So maybe like just kind of inform the guys here today, like GPAs, test scores. Are you guys looking at those? Is that part of it? Like, how does all that play into sort of the application and admission side of things for you guys?
Yeah. I would say each situation for every kid, can be a little bit different. Yeah. Not working in admissions, I have a brief understanding. I would say that from an ACT standpoint, though, we are test optional at Wartburg, so we do not require that anymore. I know that more and more colleges are kind of going away from that. At the same time, though, there's still value in that. So we still encourage, if kids still do take it, they're obviously more than welcome to send that to us. With the GPA thing is obviously a question that we ask first and foremost, right? Because we do have standards here, we do have high expectations. And it's a challenge here, and that's, again, when you go back to what kids are valuing, when a lot of times when the first or second thing that they bring up is academics, that's a green flag for me, right? Like that's great because that means that they want to go to a place where they're challenged they want to win a lot of baseball games and be in a good environment where you can get better as a baseball player, but still be challenged academically. That's exactly what we're looking for. So we're trying to find those type of students every single day.
Yeah, and it can be a challenge sometimes of, identifying the guys that do fit all of that as well. Like, you have to find that out up front too, right? Like, before you even invest that time in them, can this guy have a good chance of getting in? That's always a big part of it. Yep. Cool. Now, as far as, again, kind of looking at the admissions and applications and financial aid side of things, a lot of times just getting them in touch, right, with financial aid, with the admissions department. They'll have context there too, right? I'm sure that you get them kind of, if you've got your recruits and you're getting them talking with them, you probably end up getting them connected with the other folks there on staff too.
Absolutely. That's one of the, in terms of next steps, that's one of our big action steps moving forward after we kind of establish a connection and a relationship with them, is, getting them in touch with admissions across campus, and what territory each admissions counselor has is all perfectly outlined. So we're all good with that. And like, as I said earlier, they do a great job helping us.
Cool. So as far as like the timeline goes, Coach, there's different schools recruit earlier than others, right? How does your guys' timeline work? Like, so maybe it's kind of speaking sort of general, like, when do you kind of first think like, hey, it makes sense for us to start looking at guys like within their high school career? When do you guys kind of begin that process? When's like the earliest you might present like a verbal offer of a roster spot to a guy? How does your guys' timeline typically look?
Yeah, well, to start, I'll just say that everything's moving up. Everything's only becoming, timelines are only becoming quicker with kids. And so, right after I would say the springtime and even kind of late winter is kind of when we start identifying guys for our next class via, recruiting websites, coach connections that we have, asking for lists. So that way in the summer, we can make sure we're out and we're watching guys obviously there's going to be always to be guys pop up when you're watching a game that, you go to watch player A, but all of a sudden you notice player B, and that's great. But we want to be as diligent as we can with knowing ahead of time before the season starts, like, hey, if I'm going to go watch school A and school B, who are some 4 guys that I should watch in this next class, and who can play at the next level. And so that's our timeline with that. And then obviously we follow them throughout the whole summer. We're actually as you mentioned, we're in the thick and thin of it right now with just is pretty much the dead heat of the high school season right now. So we've been out quite a bit. Once the state tournament winds down here for us, late July, August kicks in. That's when visits will sometimes start. To be honest, we prioritize, we prefer guys to visit when school starts. So that'd be around September. And so, as I said earlier, it's only moving up, in terms of timeline. So, in a perfect world, we're done recruiting by Christmas time. We have our roster spot offers out. We've communicated where we see guys. That requires a lot of work on the front end, like I said. Because I know, the thing that I don't want to do is not have a list by the time high school season starts, right? Like I'm really grateful and appreciative of how hard our staff works on this to make sure that we're not just, there's a place to go open scout and go see kids that you maybe not know of, but having a plan, talking to coaches, showing interest, having schools tell us and kids tell us that you were the first one on me. Obviously that doesn't always mean everything, but for a lot of guys it does too. And so I think that's a big thing that we try to do is, obviously you're never going to be the first on every kid, but if you continue to show your genuine interest and be diligent with your preparation and getting to know them, I think that goes a long way.
Awesome. So for the guys in here, if you were to just kind of have a couple pieces of advice as far as like best ways to like connect with you, to make you aware of them, what are some things that they can do best, sort of like, hey, introduce themselves to you or get them your information? What would be sort of like a couple of pieces of advice to just like say that this is the most streamlined way to get this to us?
I would say, and Andy, you can probably relate to this. Twitter is crazy nowadays. Twitter's a big way of how I recruit. I know a lot of guys who are the same way, just especially with, everything that's going on. Obviously my email's on the website, guys can connect with me through that, but Twitter is something I'm always on. My username's at Tyler Willis 24, no spaces. And I'm always checking my messages and checking things. And I think that's, especially when you talk about out of state, right? Especially out of state, that's a big way in how I connect with kids. Just because Twitter is used by so many people nowadays. So if that's a way that's the easiest way to probably connect with me, honestly.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. And then as far as like updates, just kind of, again, probably the same kind of method, but again, as you begin to become more sort of close with a recruit, it's probably going to go more to like potentially phone, right? The text, the calls, though. That's the goal, is to work towards that eventually.
Absolutely. Work up to that for sure.
Yep. Cool. Good stuff. Well, we're going to start to maybe wrap a few things up here, and I want to get a few final thoughts here from Coach, but I do want to let you guys know the chat box is open. So I probably should have mentioned that a little bit earlier. If you have any questions, go ahead and fire away in there, or have anything you want to hear a little bit more about, definitely fire away in the chat box there. But Coach, if you had like just a couple pieces of advice, just kind of thinking about the recruiting process in general, for these recruits, what would be a couple of things that you would tell them to say, hey, work on these things, or just, to stay motivated, to stay persist in the process? What's a couple pieces of advice that you would have for the guys here today in the process?
Yeah. Couple things. I would say first and foremost, be who you are, be as genuine as you can be throughout the process, right? If you're a guy who throws 80 to 81, don't put 84 to 85, right? If you're a hitter who has an exit velo 95 or of 85, don't put 93, right? I think just being as genuine as you can throughout the process, because that's our goal, as coaches, especially at Wartburg, is, as I said earlier, we're very transparent with the process. We want kids to get to know us on a personal level. Not having athletic money attached to kids, there's people investing in us as coaches for 4 years to make sure that they have a good experience. So there's a lot at stake for us. And I would say, another, piece of advice is to be where your feet are with all this recruiting stuff, right? Recruiting is crazy. Especially with Twitter, there's people that want to tweet out every little thing, every little update, all this stuff. And I think it's just really important to remember that at the end of the day, as I said earlier, for us, and I'm sure other guys can relate, we're going to find out the type of kid you are, right? So you go out there and hit 500 on a weekend, that's awesome. But if you're the guy who consistently shows up late, doesn't help do the little things with field work, like whatever it is, we're going to find that out. And so continuing to be where your feet are with your high school team or your travel organization, because we're going to info seek. We call that info seeking at Wartburg here. We're going to talk with people. We're going to check up on you. And so the stats and stuff are great. Just make sure that the other things that you're doing really are team oriented as well.
I love that stuff. Like, you guys are going to check with the references. You're going to ask the questions, because like you said, we identify skill set. Man, we know these guys are probably good enough. Now we got to find the next level stuff to see where they fit in. Awesome. Well, I saw maybe there might be, I think someone said maybe they got some questions, so we're going to give it a second here, see if some questions fire in here. But yeah, definitely feel free, guys, to throw some questions in here. Let me just kind of do a couple little wrap up things here. Just real quick, guys, remember, you've got the roster openings that we post, so keep an eye on the roster openings there. Let us know about, any questions you have. If you guys want to get some updated matches and evaluations done, get us your videos, get us your numbers so we can give you some feedback, and we'll do some direct promotion as well for you guys, right? Remember that we'll be doing that as well. So if you guys have some schools, we talk with you, let us know. We're going to get you out some high match programs. Okay. Cool. So contact info is on the screen: email, phone, Twitter, social media there too. I'm going to send out Coach Tyler's info in the follow-up email too today, guys. I'll send you his email, his Twitter handle, so you guys all have that. Definitely hit him up, if you have any questions, for sure. Real quick too, guys, one last thing. I'm going to throw a quick survey in the chat box. If you guys can take 30 seconds, just fill that out for us. Always appreciate that too. But Coach Tyler, any other final thoughts? Anything that you wanted to kind of get off to these guys that we haven't already brought up? Anything that I've left out here that might be good to pass along to them?
No, I think this has been great. I think the last thing I'll say is just, again, I'm extremely passionate about Wartburg College and the recruiting process. So especially with a lot of you guys, I'm sure, being out of state, people, please reach out. I know, as I said earlier, Iowa's going to be our base always, but we do a really good job supplementing from other states. So I know, other sports here do a great job of that as well too. And when you walk on campus here, you'll be impressed with what we have to offer. So please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me.
Awesome. Coach, I really appreciate the time, man. I know it's a Sunday afternoon. Appreciate you carving out some time. We'll get you on again soon, man. I appreciate the conversation, but let us know if there's anything you need for sure. And guys, if there's any questions you have for Coach Tyler, I'm sure he'd love to hear from you. Reach out to him and let us know if there's anything you need too. But Coach, thanks for joining today.
Thanks again, Andy. Appreciate it.
You got it. Everybody else have a great day as well, and we'll see y'all soon. Y'all take care.
See ya.
Bye, guys.